You think WWE actually cares about protecting their top stars? Because what happened to Drew McIntyre backstage at SmackDown proves they'd rather create chaos than ensure anyone's safety. Jacob Fatu didn't just return, he unleashed absolute carnage on the Scottish Warrior in what might be the most reckless attack we've seen this year. And here's what's going to make your blood boil: management knew this was coming and did absolutely nothing to stop it. Let me paint you the picture of what went down, because if you missed this, you missed WWE throwing all logic out the window. Drew McIntyre was reportedly walking through the backstage area, minding his own business after addressing his issues with CM Punk and the ongoing drama with the original tribal chief Roman Reigns. The man has been through hell, carrying storylines on his back, and what does he get for his troubles? Blindsided by the Samoan werewolf himself. Jacob Fatu came out of nowhere like a freight train with no brakes. We're talking about a 300-pound wrecking ball moving at speeds that shouldn't be humanly possible. Drew didn't even have time to turn around before Fatu crashed into him with a running hip attack that sent the Scottish Warrior flying into equipment crates. But that wasn't enough for Fatu. Oh no, this was personal, this was a statement, and the bloodline doesn't do anything halfway. Here's my first question for you in the comments: do you think Jacob Fatu's attack was ordered by Solo Sikoa, or is this personal beef between Fatu and McIntyre that we don't know about yet? Drop your theories below because this rabbit hole goes deep. The attack continued with Fatu mounting McIntyre and delivering ground and pound strikes that would make any MMA fighter jealous. We're talking closed fists, elbows, absolute brutality that had production staff scrambling to pull him off. But Jacob Fatu in that mode? You might as well try to stop a tsunami with your bare hands. Security personnel were tossed aside like action figures. One poor guy tried to intervene and got hip-tossed into catering equipment. This wasn't wrestling, this was a mauling. What's even more infuriating is that multiple reports suggest there were at least 15 people backstage who could have intervened earlier. Where was Adam Pearce? Where was Nick Aldis? Where was literally anyone in management to de-escalate before Drew McIntyre's face became Jacob Fatu's personal punching bag? The negligence here is astounding, and it raises serious questions about backstage protocols and whether WWE actually has any kind of system in place to protect their talent from this kind of assault. Drew McIntyre, to his credit, tried to fight back. The man's a warrior through and through, and even with the element of surprise completely against him, he managed to land a Glasgow kiss headbutt that would have dropped most men. But Jacob Fatu? He smiled. He actually smiled through the blood starting to trickle from his nose and came back with even more aggression. That's when everyone watching knew this wasn't your typical backstage brawl, this was something darker, something more sinister brewing within the bloodline. The most chilling part? Fatu was whispering something to Drew during the attack. Cameras couldn't pick it up clearly, but those close enough heard fragments about the family, about knowing your place, and something about tribal chief. This confirms what many of us suspected: Jacob Fatu isn't just Solo Sikoa's enforcer, he's the judge, jury, and executioner for anyone who crosses the bloodline's path. Let me ask you this, and I want you to really think about it before answering in the comments: is Jacob Fatu the most dangerous member of the bloodline we've ever seen, even more than Roman Reigns at his peak? Because I'm starting to believe he is. By the time security finally managed to restrain Fatu, which took approximately 7 full-grown men and one very brave referee, Drew McIntyre was left lying in a heap surrounded by destroyed equipment, broken tables, and what looked like the remnants of someone's craft services dinner. Medical staff rushed to attend to him immediately, and here's where things get even more concerning: Drew was holding his ribs, possibly indicating broken or bruised ribs from Fatu's relentless assault. He was also bleeding from above his left eye, requiring immediate attention from WWE's medical team. The aftermath of this attack raises so many questions about where WWE goes from here. Drew McIntyre has been systematically targeted by everyone from CM Punk to the Bloodline, and now with Jacob Fatu back in the mix and clearly on a mission to destroy anyone Solo Sikoa points him toward, what does this mean for Drew's championship aspirations? What does this mean for the power structure on SmackDown? And most importantly, what does this mean for the Bloodline's ultimate endgame? Because let's be real here, Jacob Fatu didn't just attack Drew McIntyre for fun. The Bloodline doesn't move without purpose, without strategy. Every action they take is calculated to send a message, to establish dominance, to remind everyone in WWE that they're not just a faction, they're a dynasty. And Drew McIntyre, whether he likes it or not, just became Exhibit A in their campaign of terror. Now here's something that's going to make you even angrier: this entire situation could have been avoided. Reports indicate that Jacob Fatu had been spotted backstage nearly 30 minutes before the attack occurred. 30 minutes. That's half an hour where management could have assigned security to high-risk talent, could have kept potential adversaries separated, could have done literally anything to prevent what everyone with half a brain could see coming. But they didn't. They let it happen, either through incompetence or, and this is the conspiracy theory that's gaining traction, because they wanted it to happen for the drama and the ratings. Think about it. WWE thrives on chaos, on unpredictability, on moments that get social media buzzing and fans talking. What better way to reignite interest in the Bloodline storyline than having their most intimidating member return and absolutely demolish one of SmackDown's top faces? It's cynical, it's manipulative, and it's exactly the kind of thing WWE would do. They're playing chess while we're all suffering through the consequences. Here's another question for the comments, and this one's important. Should there be legitimate consequences for WWE management's failure to protect Drew McIntyre, or is this all just part of the show and we need to accept that this is how wrestling works? Let me know your thoughts because I genuinely want to understand how people view this situation. Drew McIntyre, for what it's worth, has been through worse. The man's been fired from WWE, worked his way back from the independent scene, rebuilt himself into a world champion, and endured countless setbacks. But this attack feels different. This feels like the beginning of something that's going to fundamentally change his character, his trajectory, and potentially his entire future with the company. You don't get assaulted by Jacob Fatu and just shake it off like nothing happened. This leaves scars, both physical and psychological. The fan reaction has been absolutely explosive. Social media erupted within minutes of the attack, with hashtag Jacob Fatu and hashtag Drew McIntyre trending worldwide. Wrestling fans are divided right down the middle. One side is absolutely loving the intensity and brutality that Jacob Fatu brings, arguing that this is exactly the kind of edge WWE has been missing. The other side is furious about the apparent disregard for safety and the glorification of what essentially amounts to workplace violence. Both perspectives have valid points, which makes this situation even more complex to navigate. What's undeniable is Jacob Fatu's presence changes everything. The man brings a level of legitimate toughness and intensity that's rare in modern wrestling. His background in various independent promotions, his family legacy as part of the legendary Anoa'i wrestling dynasty, and his sheer physical dominance make him unlike anyone else on the WWE roster. When he's on screen or unleashing havoc backstage, you believe every second of it. There's no performative aspect to his aggression, it feels real, visceral, and genuinely dangerous. From a storyline perspective, this attack opens up numerous possibilities. Does Drew McIntyre seek revenge immediately, or does he bide his time and strike when the Bloodline least expects it? Does this bring CM Punk into the equation, creating an unlikely alliance against a common enemy? Does Roman Reigns return to find his family in chaos with Solo Sikoa leading them down a path of unnecessary violence? The permutations are endless, and that's what makes this so compelling despite the frustrations with how it was handled. One more question before we wrap this up: if you were Drew McIntyre, would you seek revenge immediately or would you play the long game and wait for the perfect moment to strike back? Comment below with your strategy because I'm curious how you all would handle being on the receiving end of Jacob Fatu's wrath. The real issue that nobody's talking about enough is what this means for workplace culture in WWE. Yes, it's sports entertainment, yes we understand that storylines require conflict, but there's a line between compelling television and creating an environment where talent doesn't feel safe. If Jacob Fatu can attack Drew McIntyre with impunity, with minimal security intervention, what's stopping anyone from doing anything to anyone backstage? It sets a dangerous precedent that undermines the entire foundation of how a wrestling company should operate. This situation demands answers from WWE management, from Adam Pearce, from whoever's making these decisions. Drew McIntyre deserves better, the fans deserve better, and quite frankly, Jacob Fatu deserves better than being positioned as nothing more than an attack dog without clear motivation beyond, the bloodline told me to do it. Give us the why, give us the reasoning, give us something that makes this feel like more than just shock value violence for the sake of trending on Twitter. Jacob Fatu's return should have been momentous, celebratory even. Instead, it's mired in controversy and questions about safety protocols. That's a failure of creative, a failure of management, and a failure to protect the talent who work incredibly hard to entertain us every single week. What happens next will define this entire angle. Does WWE double down on the chaos, or do they actually provide consequences and structure? We'll be watching closely, and you better believe we'll be calling out every misstep along the way.